Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where what we like to do is talk about Doctor Who DVDs, Blu-rays and physical media releases of Doctor Who. Now, for the last kind of year, really, we haven't had much opportunity to do that. But like buses, these things all come along at once, and so today we have both a new Blu-ray box set in Season 20 to discuss and kind of unexpectedly, a brand new animated episode of Doctor Who to discuss in the Underwater Menace. So, I've got my three trusty companions joining me today, Ryan, Bill and Charlie. Charlie, would you say this came out of the blue a little bit, in terms of this being an animation that's actually happening?
A little bit is a bit of an understatement. It shocked me a lot. I first heard about this because of it was Bill, it was your channel on YouTube. I got a notification about it and I was like, oh, it was a post you did. I was like, the Underwater Menace, this can't be real. I thought, is it April 1st? Like, what's happening? Yeah. And I had a look, and yeah, it's a thing that's happening. I still don't really know what to think of it. I mean, from what I gather, they didn't have budget to do a full story, so they did something for only 2 episodes, which is fair enough. I'm kind of torn. I'm kind of happy we're getting some more animations, but Underwater Menace, I can't bring myself to care loads about the Underwater Menace because I don't think it's an amazing story. I'll still buy the Blu-ray. I'll still watch it, but
no,
I don't care loads. I'm just hoping this will lead on to more animations like Marco Polo,
yes,
Celestial Toymaker, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that'll be great.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I know it is only 2 episodes that don't exist, but they are animating all 4, of course. So they are doing a full story animation. So I don't think we should take it as necessarily they haven't got enough money. More maybe they're just dipping their toe back in the water after getting new investment from somewhere. I don't know. I'm sure we'll discuss all that. But Bill, would you share any more excitement about the story, The Underwater Menace, or is it kind of down the bottom of your list? I can't remember. I don't think any of us put it in the bottom 5, did we? But I think pretty low, some of them. Bill, what's your thoughts?
No, I wouldn't go as far as to put it in my bottom 5 all time, but I mean, it's my least favorite Patrick Troughton story. So
even worse than the Space Pirates.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, fair enough. So you would have preferred a Space Pirates animation to this, then, presumably?
Kind of, but the audio quality is so bad, isn't it? So
true. Yeah, it's a difficult listen. Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, you really have to. I enjoy Space Pirates because I kind of really persevered with it last time I watched it, and tried to pay as much attention as possible to it, and found it all right. I wouldn't say it's brilliant, but it's fine.
Okay.
But the Underwater Menace, yeah, it's not a story that I love, but I think realistically, it's kind of, we've reached a point in the animations where we have to think they're going to have to do the stinkers, basically. Yeah. And because it would be lovely if they did Marco Polo, Daleks Master Plan, Massacre, St. Bartholomew's Eve, etc. But the fact is, Marco Polo is 7 parts. Daleks Master Plan is like 9. Massacre, I mean, is only 4, but has got a lot going on in it. So,
well, we should go and talk to Ian Levine because apparently he's animating the Massacre. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but he's going to try and crowdfund 20 grand to get the Massacre animated, which sounds like a very interesting decision. And you're only allowed to watch it if you paid £100 towards it as well. So, yeah, not sure that's going to go too far.
200 people can watch this.
Yeah, essentially, yes. Essentially. Yeah. So, a real widespread for the fans kind of project there for me and Levine. Real great time. But yeah, I know what you mean, Bill. And Ryan, would you share any more enthusiasm on the story? And we will talk about the animation, but the story itself.
I wish I could share the same enthusiasm. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the worst one. I mean, look, I tried Space Pirates, I gave it a shot, and I mean, as I said in the past, even with the rest being audio, I still found it dull, and I wish so I wouldn't say it's that bad. Like, it's not like earth-shatteringly dull like Space Pirate was for me, but but it doesn't really grab me as a story. I mean, the only thing that is kind of noteworthy about it is, of course, the main villain in that Professor. Is it Zarov?
Yeah,
Is
Zarov.
it? Yeah, and him being all like, "Nothing in the world can
Yeah.
stop me now," and all
Indeed.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he's just as insane as Soldeed from Horns of Nimon, and in a way, he's kind of a prototype Soldeed in a way, and it's. And so it does have that going for it, but yeah, it just doesn't really grab me. But I mean, it's if there was like a bottom 5 Patrick Charlton stories, it would be in the bottom 5, but it definitely wouldn't be absolute rock bottom at Space Pirates.
Yeah. Okay, well that's something, that's something. And as I think it's fair to say that this animation as a sort of project is not something we expected, because we sat here nearly a year ago. I remember going to the BFI screening of Abominable Snowmen just under a year ago, where Gary Russell said, yeah, they're not making any more animations, like there's nothing in the pipeline, this is where we're at. And so really the fact, I know we then saw, I think in earlier this year, there was some rumours about, I think was it the Smugglers and something else? Was it the Savages, something like that?
No, it was the Underwater Menace as well.
Was it the Underwater Menace? I can't remember whether that was rumoured or not.
I think there was like another rumour. I don't know if it was this past month or so, but I have heard some kind of. This could only just be just straight up rumours, nothing concrete here, but they could potentially be animating the Celestial Toy Maker.
Yeah, it sounded like there's rumours, and it would be logical. But the thing is, what would have been logical would be for them to be releasing an animation of the Celestial Toy Maker in November. That's what would make the most sense. So the fact that we've got the Underwater Menace for November seems to sort of make that a little bit of an odd one. It's nice to have a sort of anniversary release, I suppose, but the fact that they've chosen the Underwater Menace is slightly surprising. But I guess we shouldn't be too critical, because the fact the animations are happening again after a year of really not expecting it, I think is fantastic news, and gives us a real hope that the sort of the final ones will actually get animated, because I think we're down to is it 9 stories left? I think there's only 3 stories in the Troughton era left to animate after this one now. Which is what the Highlanders, Wheel in Space, and the Space Pirates, I think, are the only 3 left now. I'm pretty sure that don't have their episodes covered, which is pretty amazing given that most of Troughton was missing 10 years ago, and now look at all we've got. I think it's fantastic. But the Underwater Menace, we've all seen the little teaser trailer. The animation looks, I think it's fair to say, it looks broadly similar to what we've become accustomed to recently from the animated range. I'm not sure whether it was 100% clear who was kind of behind the animations. I don't know if you guys were able to find out whether it's, because I know it used to be BBC Studios did some of it with sort of slightly random animation companies, and then there was Big Finish Creative that did some of it, like Gary Russell's lot. Yeah. But I'm not quite sure. I think it might be Anne-Marie Walsh who's kind of looking after this one, who is one of the main producers behind them, like Evil of the Daleks and the Macra Terror and ones like that. I'm guessing it's down that route again, but
I think it's BBC Studios again, which I think ties in with the fact that it's like a similar style to what they've done before, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Billy, do you like the style? Do you like the look of it from the teaser? What we saw of it, was only very brief. It was like 15 seconds, but I mean, it looked very colourful, I thought, at the least.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I mean, as you say, it's kind of style we've just come accustomed to, really. So there's not much to say from what few seconds we get of it in the teaser. I know some people kind of that it's been a bit of an issue going with the animations for the past few years, where some people don't mind the fact that they're not really as faithful to the original productions anymore, but others do take a bit of an issue with it, and I get why, because I think originally when they first started doing animations back with the Invasion, I think that was more of trying to kind of bring those lost episodes back to life, as opposed to sort of like doing a reimagining, which is what they're doing nowadays. Which, as I say, some people like it, some people won't. It won't be to everyone's taste. I kind of don't mind it myself. I think I don't mind like them priests or whatever looking a bit different. if they've redesigned the fish people as well, that's fine. I think they've redesigned Zaroff a bit as well, which is again fine. The only thing I think they've done, which I think is more of a cost-cutting measure, is to have Jamie normal get up, which he actually wears if you look at the surviving episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's fine for me, but I understand that some people are not. It's not going to be for everyone, and that some people are not going to be very happy about it.
Yeah, I think it's always been a tricky issue. I feel like for several years now, it's always one of the main topics of conversation is, you know, around the being faithful in the animations. And I mean, the reality of it is that they want to create a sort of product that is more sellable. That's why they animate all the episodes, even including existing ones, is because they want a sort of full product of a whole animated story they can sell. And I think often that means, as part of it, also like for cost reasons, you say with Jamie's outfit, because that's one they've already got on file. It doesn't cost them any money to use that again compared to designing new ones that match what were in this story. So it's sort of, I think a lot of it is just about slightly cutting corners to save money here and there, and also just adding a bit of scale and things to it. Like I remember back in the DVD range, I think it was The Ice Warriors, I think, was the one where Chris Chapman specifically made the animated episodes like shot by shot, absolutely perfectly matching the original episodes and how it should have been. So almost so you could see what an animated version of pure classic Doctor Who would look like. And like, it's fine, and it does kind of match reasonably well, but also in some ways it's almost not as exciting and not as fun to watch, because it is just actually doing the job of faithfully recreating it, which I'm sure some people love and think that's the peak of the animated episodes, but I'm not so sure personally. You know, we're getting them in colour and things, and they look great. I don't know, Charlie, where do you sit on this whole, you know, debate on how faithful the animation should be?
What you were saying about the Ice Warriors, I watched this one kind of recently, and I did think, wow, this is kind of boring. Like, I love the Ice Warriors as a story. I think it's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite, but like, it's pretty good. Like 8 out of 10. But Macroterra, it's not a great story. Like, it's okay, but it's a little bit boring. But the animation I thought was great. Like the animation, I thought definitely, if it was just a black and white, it could survive the episode, a bit more boring. So it does add a bit of something to it, you it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, I just think if it looks good and it's still the same basic story and outcome, and like the same idea, like sure the fish priests look a bit different, but like who cares? Like
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's the Underwater Menace. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, that's kind of where I tend to fall on it. Is it's okay to do these little things like I can understand, you know, we've had the debate in the past with things like the Macroterra where they've taken a whole scene out because it was too expensive to do it and stuff like that. Like, I get that is a little bit annoying, and when they start doing that, I can kind of understand it, but I also understand the reason for doing it in terms of cost as well. I think it's, you know, a tricky line to walk. But Ryan, based on what you've seen of the little teaser and the images and stuff, does it you know, look visually like something you're going to be looking forward to?
It does look interesting. I mean, then again, 15 seconds, not really what to go on. It was a lot of fast cutting, and so I didn't really get much of a sense of it to get like a full impression of it. But I'm hoping that they do a good job with the animation. And if they do make some changes, that's absolutely fine. I mean, with Fury from the Deep, they practically altered Patmos Ambervar. He looks absolutely nothing like how he did in the original Abominable Snowman. So I can understand the good. I mean, create different designs and creative liberties is okay in my opinion, just as long as they do it right. You know what I mean? So it's, if they do some alterations, as long as it's in the benefit of the story, then that's absolutely fine with me. I'm hoping that we just get a great animation from this, and hopefully it will lead to even more animations that will continue to be better from here. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I would prefer if they actually animated Celestial Toymaker, because I mean, for obvious reasons, but who knows? Maybe they wanted to get the 60th out.
Yeah, maybe they'll release it in like March next year or something, as a, you know, like when the Celestial Toymaker is actually the villain of series 14 as well, then, you know, it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was that report a while ago that said I think maybe Neil Patrick Harris maybe did some stuff with Shootigatwa, whether he's referring to the 60th specifically, or if it's Series 14, who knows? But I mean, if maybe it's a marketing ploy by Russell to say, if you want to know more about the toy maker, here is his first story coming out soon and all that. So I'm hoping that's the case. I mean, I want to see. I mean, the Celestial Toymaker is a great story anyway. So, and I really do want to see it animated. So, hopefully, we get that next. And I mean, it'd be nice if we get like the Smugglers or the Savages, but I would much rather have Celestial Toymaker next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking, right, there are actually only 3 stories that I actually want to see. Marco Polo, Alex Master Plan, and Celestial Toymaker. That's it. I mean, Marco Polo is very awkward because it's 7 episodes, ahistorical. It's going to be enormous. So is Alex Master Plan. And Celestial Toymaker would be really good for March, but I don't know. I just think I would happily have no animations after Underwater Menace and wait until like 2026 for a Daleks Master Plan Mission to the Unknown release. That would be just perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I kind of understand. I sort of understand why they chose to do this, because it's sort of completing an unfinished project from years and years ago. Because the same studio, Planet 55, were originally going to do this story. They were the same people who did Reign of Terror, Planet and Moonbase. They were supposed to do this as well, but for financial reasons or
I think it was political reasons behind the scenes at the BBC. For some reason, it sort of all fell apart. And then there was a whole campaign, wasn't there, like Save the Fish People or something, to try and get the DVD released, because everybody knew it was sitting on a shelf in the BBC and no one wanted to release it, with a new documentary and everything. It was a slightly bizarre time. But of course, we also ended up with the worst reconstructions you've ever seen.
Oh my God.
So at least I will actually be able to sit through it this time, unlike that one where episodes, the 2 missing episodes, where you just have 30 seconds of just one slide holding on screen, which doesn't cut when someone else talks, like it's just the wrong person. It's just nothing.
Yeah, and no linking narration to explain what's happening in the scene. Nothing at all. It was just probably the laziest Doctor Who DVD release think of, really. So at least one thing's for certain, it'll be an improvement on that.
Yes, we can all go and burn our Underwater Menace DVDs from the past now, because we don't need them anymore. There's nothing good left on them. All the good stuff being transferred over, plus a load of extra stuff, which will make it even better. So that's really, really good news. And it's probably worth briefly mentioning the special features and some of the other stuff to do with the release. I know that many people on the forums have been very, very disappointed by the fact that the existing episodes are on a different disc to the animated episodes. So if you want to watch, the missing episodes and the animated episodes and the existing episodes, you have to switch discs, which I've learned for some people on the internet is a real trial, and they'd rather not buy it than have to go through that pain of ejecting a disc and putting another one in and waiting 10 seconds. I don't know. Does anybody have strong feelings about the allocation of the content of the discs?
It does annoy me, but I wouldn't be one of those people that wouldn't get it, because I can understand being a little bit annoyed by it, but not to the point where you're like, I'm just not going to buy it because it's so annoying. I'm like, I just don't get how that could be such an issue for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure people who have bought the Web of Fear and wanted to watch that episode in colour must have been so annoyed, being like, I can't really have to switch over the disc so I can watch the colour version of the long-awaited animation of the Web of Fear.
Woohoo, episode 3, woohoo. We all loved that one, didn't we? Yeah.
Oh my God. What were they thinking?
I know. It's fairly insane, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I actually showed that to my niece for the first time this week, and watching it again, because it's been so long since I've watched the Web of Fear animation.
Yeah.
Woof. Woof.
Yeah. Well, I think it was about 2 years ago now that it came out. We talked about it. It's a long time. It's been, and then there's that video. There's that like little on the special features, there's this little like 6-minute feature with the guy who did the animation going, "Oh, hello BBC, here's all the great things we could do with animation to make your great future animations." And they never brought them back again to do anything.
No, that animation is probably a crime against humanity. It certainly is. I mean, just watching like half an hour's worth of CGI Roblox characters with freaky nightmare fuel faces and everything. It's
pretty bad. It was pretty bad, wasn't it? I think it's fair to say. But just to finish up on the Underwater Menace, of course, there's a making of documentary on there which was made for the DVD release back in the early 2010s, but it's one of these sort of better Chris Chapman making of documentary ones. I think they went on location somewhere. There's a fish person in it and all that. It's actually really quite good. I remember watching it. It was a really good documentary. So that's worth checking out again on the release. There's the censor clips, because of course some of the missing episodes are saved because they were too distressing for the Australians. So we've got a few extra clips on there. Slightly randomly, there's an episode of something I've never heard of called The Man from Mydits. I don't know if anybody had heard of that before they announced it on here. But I know it's got Patrick Troughton in it, and I think the guy who plays Professor Saroff. Is that right?
Oh.
Or at least it's
that's
got
probably
Patrick
the
Troughton.
connection.
I think that's why they put it on there, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Because I think only 2 of those exist or something, apparently. And so it's, a slightly random, kind of like when they put the episode of Robin Hood featuring Patrick Troughton on a disc somewhere as well. I can't remember what release it was, but they definitely did that.
I think it was Out the Daleks. I think it might have been either that or Evil of the Daleks. One of the Dalek releases.
So it's kind of cool because I've nenever really seen Patrick Troughton in anything else on television. So it's kind of cool to see his portrayal of, a different character, I suppose. But also it's probably not something I'm going to rush to watch, very often. And then a couple of news reports, a South Today news report and an audio report as well. So a few different things on there. And it does say, I've just checked on the article, it says will be available to buy from November 2023. So that's good news. A November release. It's not, they used to love announcing stuff about a year before they actually released it. Do you remember when was it? Fury from the Deep, something like that was announced over a year before it was actually released.
Abominable Snowmen 2 was announced way before it's
like the Web of Fear, I think, was about 10 months, something like that, and that was only one episode. And it was like, so they really need to get away from doing that. So I'm glad that they're only giving us a 2-month wait for this one. But I thought the last interesting thing just worth thinking about with that story was that we've seen in the past that like the Evil of the Daleks animation took 18 months, I think it was, for the whole project, nearly 2 years for the whole project. And given that, well, obviously Gary Russell is not the font of all knowledge, but he did say at the BFI less than a year ago that there were no projects on the go for animated Doctor Who. And yet here we are less than a year later and one's basically done. So I thought that's quite interesting, and maybe suggest can they either they started earlier and we just didn't know about it, or that actually they can make them a little bit quicker. And it's probably the reason why they haven't done, say, Dalek Master Plan, because they would have had to start that in about 2020 to actually have it ready for the anniversary, because it's going to take so long. So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting, thought on that, which is quite good. But yes, so we're all moderately excited for the release, would we say?
Yeah, moderate, I think, would be just about right. I mean, if they were to announce like Special Toy Maker or Immortal Daleks Master Plan, which is still my number one thing I would love to have animated, if it was that, then I think it's fair to say would be all over the moon. But yeah, I think this is just more moderate would be the right word.
Exactly. And Charlie, we're getting closer and closer to completing the whole Troughton era as well. Only 3 animated stories left to go, so that must be exciting for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, season 4 as a collection will be good in a couple of years when they've got.
Yeah.
I mean, most people sort of forget about the Hartnell ones, but he did have a couple of serials in season 4. So they've got the Smugglers and the Highlanders. Is that it for season 4?
I think yes.
So
the Highlanders is all they need. Yeah.
So 8 episodes.
Yeah. And they're pretty well. I know there's a few characters, but they're reasonably straightforward 4-parters, I think. So
definitely.
I guess the difficulty will be that they're probably not the most sought after episodes that are going to sell well, but then nor is the Underwater Menace, and it's happening. So
what they should start doing, I think, is sell them as like the less marketable ones. Just do them as 2-story box sets. But you can take the DVDs out and reverse the covers like we all do.
Love it. Yeah. That's the way. That's a great idea. And Bill, overall reasonable excitement for this. It's good to see the animations back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's a story that we love or hate. It's just great to have the animations come back at all, really, because, like you say, we've been waiting a year since the Abominable Snowmen, pretty much.
Yeah.
And we had no idea whether they're going to continue or not. So this was quite out of the blue, but I'm glad that it's going ahead.
Yeah.
I would say I believe, I mean, it's not that I necessarily want it to be the next one, but I believe the next one is probably going to be The Smugglers. The reason why I say that is because I don't know if you know, but they colorized some of the censor clips from it for the F5 event recently.
Oh yeah.
And I checked like the special features for the Underwater Menace, and they weren't included. So I was thinking, if they are going to release them publicly, which they might not do, but if they were going to, it would make sense to include it on a Smugglers animation. And, you know, the Mirror got it right about the Underwater Menace and many other animations. They could get it right about that as well.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
be fine. I mean, it's not a great story, but again, for me anyway, it doesn't matter because we've got an animation. I'd love to see Marco Polo and Master Plan and everything, don't get me wrong, but I think, yeah, we're a long way off, unfortunately. As much as I'd love to see them, I think we'd be lucky if, they came next.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think we're also being, to an extent, rewarded for our patience. Because, you know, when we sat here in, I don't know, 2015 or whatever, and the DVD range had died, we certainly did not expect to see so many animated Doctor Who episodes, Blu-ray collection releases, like all of this stuff was, you know, pretty unimaginable sort of 7 or 8 years ago. So I think I feel like, especially now that they've come back and we kind of know there's some money there again to actually do animations, I'm optimistic for the future. I feel like, you know, maybe one day in like 10 years time, we could actually say we have like an official version of every single episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I think would be pretty great.
I mean, from the looks of it, we'll have the collection range for Classic Who anyway, complete in 2028.
Yeah.
Kind of 2027 if they do 3 a year, 8, 9 if they do 2 a year.
Yeah.
But like, let's say 2030, we've got, you know, collections and animations pretty much done, really, if they keep it up. So that's quite good.
Yeah, exactly. 7 years time, and then we can start on the new series and get loads of stuff going for that, and it'd be great.
I mean, by that time we'll have 25 years since series 1, so that's really enough.
I think that's way more than enough time. Absolutely. I mean, we might need Russell to leave the show so he can actually spill all the beans on, you know, Keith Boak and flaming sofas and all that from series 1. But I think it'll be a real fun time. Anyway, that's about all we've got to say, I think, on the Underwater Menace for now. So we've got a couple of months to wait for that. And of course, we'll be talking all about it when it's released in November. Now, another release that's coming later this year, which I think it's fair to say was more expected, because I feel like this Blu-ray box set has been rumoured since 2019, since like that road trip to Amsterdam, which we finally have a clip of in the trailer, of Sarah Sutton, Janet Fielding, and Peter Davison travelling to a convention in Amsterdam or something like that, which leaked on Twitter or a forum or something, I don't know, in like May 2019 when they actually did it. And everybody's been talking about it since then, saying it's going to be the next one, and then it's not, and it's going to be the next one, and it's not. And then finally, about a month ago, sorry guys, we're a bit behind here, but a month ago, they announced season 20, full of loads of extra stuff. So I'm just going to quickly reel off all the stuff that's extra that's on there, because there's actually loads. Like, there's 9 discs, and I feel like compared to the last couple, say season 2, season 9, I feel like there's more new stuff on this box set than we've seen recently. Like, it really feels packed with new updated things, special documentaries and all that, which is really exciting. So I'm going to quickly reel them off, and I'm going to ask all 3 of you what you're most looking forward to about it. So get ready, listen carefully, because there's a lot of stuff. So we've got a 40th anniversary version of the 5 Doctors, for some reason, because you can't have enough versions of the 5 Doctors, can you? Updated special effects on Snake Dance and Enlightenment, Behind the Sofa. We've got the In Conversation, which looked like a duo in conversation with Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton at the same time, which I thought was quite interesting. So that'll be quite good. The travel to Amsterdam to look at the locations and stuff. Then their European road trip, which might just be another trip to Amsterdam, but I'm intrigued. With again Peter Davison, Sarah Sutton, Janet Fielding. They're kind of a common theme here. And then it's Janet Fielding meets Martin Clunes, but I think that would be quite interesting. Then there's a whole making of for The King's Demon as well. There's even a documentary about making of the trailer for the season, which I thought was just quite funny. And then convention footage, all the usual stuff, studio footage, a US documentary from the 1980s apparently. Didn't even know that was on there. And then various other stuff as well. So I think it's fair to say there's a lot going on this box set. So Charlie, would you have one feature that you're most looking forward to of the selection that's here?
I mean, Behind the Sofa is always great.
Yeah,
that would be one of them. I can't just say one because these are great.
It's true.
I think the making of the King's Demons will be nice. Just have more making ofs to have a complete collection, because it's really annoying when you've got some that just don't have one. My usual routine is just to watch a story, then watch the making of.
Yeah,
I do that for every single one.
Yeah,
and it's quite annoying when there's not one. But I think the most enjoyable is going to have to be the road trip. It just looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and just further testament to how much time and efforts and love they put into these sets for us. Like, they absolutely don't have to do that, but they still do. I just think that's great. Like, these actors are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're still doing all this stuff for us. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, their dedication to the fans and things is pretty impressive. I think it's fair to say. And particularly, I feel like the Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, Sarah Sutton trio are dedicated. They kind of mess around. They kind of love each other enough that they kind of are willing to do all this stuff. I feel like, because especially Peter Davison, you watch those Behind the Sofas. He doesn't like a lot of his Doctor Who. He thinks some of it's terrible. But he still loves doing documentaries about it and messing about, talking about it and stuff. So, I think that's always quite interesting. But Ryan, any favourites there for you that you're looking forward to?
I'm definitely looking forward to the road trip, because I think that's just going to be absolutely hilarious, to see what sort of antics they're going to get up to in Amsterdam and how it could end up going wrong on the road trip and everything. I'm a feeling that one's going to be a really good one. And I'm kind of interested in the new effects, but specifically for Enlightenment, because I'm curious as to know what they're going to do, what kind of new effects they're going to add to that story. Because for me, even though Caves of Androzani is obviously my favourite Peter Davison story, Enlightenment is a very close second for me. It's actually my favourite story of this season, and I am just curious to know what kind of new effects could be added to it. And so I'm more curious about that than say about the Five Doctors, which they already did some updated effects for the special edition years ago. So and this is basically their third or fourth. I can't even remember anymore how many times they did something new for the Five Doctors.
I know, yeah. There's a lot of versions of it now. I think there's about 3 or 4 different versions that are going to be on this box set. So certainly you can pick whichever version you enjoy. That's for sure. But I'm not sure we needed it, but that's okay. That's okay.
And finally, I'll just very quick mention is also the Matthew Sweet interview with Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton. I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm very curious to know just their whole experience on it, particularly Janet Fielding, because considering the fact that, for me, Janet Fielding's and Tegan is one of the best companions of the 80s. Her and Ace are the quintessential 80s companions, and I'm just interested to hearing Janet's whole experience with Doctor Who, and especially after last year's Pal the Doctor, she's kind of gone through a big resurgence in a way, thanks to it. And I'm just very curious to know, her experience with classic Doctor Who and everything after that. I'm just very curious to know everything and how Matthew Sweet tackles it. I think that will be my number 2. Looking forward to as well after the road trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be intrigued to see if they recorded that interview before or after we sort of knew about her Power of the Doctor appearance, as to whether she can reference or talk about that at all. Maybe it won't be relevant to the conversation, but I'd still be intrigued to sort of see her thoughts about that in context of the rest of her career and things. I think would be really, really interesting as well. And Bill, is there any highlights for you there on the box set?
Well, I mean, I would say the road trip, but that's already been covered, really.
Yeah.
I think everyone's just really looking forward to that because of the banter that's going to ensue, really. But I'd also be interested to see what Martin Clunes has to say, because I mean, I think Snake Dance was his only real Doctor Who credit.
Yeah, it's
So
impressive they got him really because he's pretty, pretty big deal, pretty famous guy. So to
yeah,
want to come back and talk about his one Doctor Who story 40 years ago is quite impressive.
yeah. So I think that should be really interesting.
Mm.
I think again, it's another great box set full of really good special features. Really, I mean, I don't really see why we're getting another Five Doctors, but and controversially, I actually think the Mr. Whippy effect is
Yeah.
probably the best.
Yeah, no,
I know some people
I
don't
feel
think
like
it is,
for me, that's the one I remember from a child, rather
Mm.
than the original. I remember the Mr. Whippy Cone one. Like that's just my sort of original, really. So
And it makes more sense as a
yeah,
effect, and
and
it
just a
just works
flat
better rather than
triangle.
this.
Yeah,
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 silly.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I can't say anything else really, but yeah, it's just great to see the collection back.
Absolutely, I agree. So we're just going. We kind of talked about the box set. I feel like there's not huge amounts more to say apart from we're really looking forward to it. And once we get the box set in, I don't really know when. Do they ever confirm? I don't think they confirm when it's actually being released. Just later this year, I'm pretty sure they said, didn't they?
I think the rumor is about
Oh, I
September.
saw a rumored mid-September release date, but I don't think that's been officially confirmed yet. But it is worth noting that this week, on Thursday, the 17th of August, the Doctor Who magazine has the list of the full set of special features in it, which they usually release only sort of a month before the box set's released. So I'd say September's a pretty reasonable bet. And once that's out, we'll watch all the features and we'll come on and have a big discussion about them. But one of the key things we haven't talked about when it comes to season 20 is the stories themselves, because I think it's fair to say it's a mixed bag. Now, obviously, we have stories that are very popular, like The Five Doctors. I would say Enlightenment's also pretty popular, and Snake Dance to an extent, I think. Not as good as Kinder, but to an extent. And then you have Terminus, Arc of Infinity, King's Demons. I don't really know where to start. So, Ryan, kick us off. Give some thoughts on any of the stories, really. Any particularly good ones, particularly bad ones? Where do they sit for you?
Well, I've mentioned in the past that Enlightenment is my favorite story of this season. I think it's such a fascinating, surreal story. I just absolutely love Enlightenment. It's my second favorite Peter Davison story, so I'm really excited to see that on Blu-ray. Five Doctors is quite solid. I mean, I prefer Three Doctors and Day of the Doctor more over this. Five Doctors, it's a solid story. I just feel like it could have been, for me, it could have been a bit better. You know what I mean? Because I'm hearing all the stuff of what they were going to do. I just feel like, oh, all this stuff is missing, and it feel like if they added just these little few more things in, it could have been perfect. And it's still a solid story. It's just, I think Three Doctors and especially Day of the Doctor resonated with me more personally, but I'm excited to see it. Snake Dance and Maldron Undead are fine.
Yeah.
I think that's the best. They're fine, but they're nothing more than that. Terminus, some nice ideas, but I think it is pretty much just, well, boring, really.
Yeah.
It's
The worst thing a Doctor Who story can be is boring, I think.
Yeah, it's just dull. King's Demons, I literally remember nothing about it other than Chameleon gets introduced in it, and that's all I can remember.
And, Sir Gilles Estram, or whatever his name is, the Master's, really secret name, Sir Gilles Estram, and he's got a beard, and definitely not the Master.
It's just a two-part. It feels like nothing to me. The King's Demons. It's just really 2 episodes of just nothing, and well, Arc of Infinity. What is there to say about it? Hasn't already been said.
Yeah.
When we did our worst stories. I think you had it at number 1. I think you.
Yeah, I can't actually remember. Did I put it number 1? I think I did, didn't I?
I think you might put
It was
number
certainly in the bottom 5. I can tell you that much because it really is that bad.
Yeah, and I forgot to put it in there. So to make up for that, I retroactively decided to make it a joint number 2 because as soon as you talked about it, all the memories of it just came flooding back to me. And I just remember just how much I really despised Arc of Infinity. I mean, what a way to kick off the season.
I know.
And also watching it on a double bill with Time Flight, the story before that.
It's
if you want
back to backing it, it's tricky.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate double bill from hell.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, I feel like a close comparison might be Love and Monsters and Fear Her from series 2. That's probably,
I mean, Love and Monsters is just kind of average, really. I mean, it's not offensive. I mean, Fear Her is kind of offensive.
Yeah.
That is definitely much more offensive. But with Time Flight and Arc of, but even then, it's not a bad comparison. I mean, but then again, Time Flight and Arc of Infinity, I think that's just beyond offensive. It's just the absolute worst form of torture, just watching those two back to back. And I think Peter Davison said at one time he wasn't happy with his second season for various reasons. One of them had to do with like budget and all that. And watching this season, especially if you watch Arc Infinity, you can kind of see his points because it's just not very good, really. And in a way, after this season, you can kind of understand why he didn't feel the need to do more than 3 years.
Yeah. I think unfortunately this season just put him off carrying on, really, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a shame. And he even said that he enjoyed doing his last season more than he did his second. And if that last season had been more like if his second season was more like his last season, he said he might have stayed just a little bit longer, but it's just a shame. I mean, even though he's never been a favourite Doctor of mine, if he could have had the potential to do better stories, but it's just this season. I think this might be his worst season out of the 3. Maybe. I think it is. I mean,
I would probably tend to
more worse stories.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the 5 Doctors is kind of saving it, but then it's also not really part of the season almost. It's kind of separate. It's just tagged on. But I feel like, it's probably the weakest of the 3. But Charlie, your thoughts?
I'm going to say it, guys. Season 20 is my favourite Davison season.
What? Your opinion is wrong. No, you're not allowed that opinion.
It might not be the best, right? I'd say that goes to 21. But it's my favourite. It's just dumb fun. It's like rainy day stories, kind of comfort food that's a bit trash, but it's also just really enjoyable for me. It's Arc of Infinity. I've kind of defended in the past. It's not a good story. I do not like it. It's just ridiculous. Warriors of the Deep tier type. Just no, it's not good. It's my 8th least favorite. All the others though, they're okay. 2 very good. Like 5 Doctors, I love. Enlightenment, I love. Mordred Undead was pretty good in my opinion. Solid 8 out of 10. I will defend season 20 to the death. It's just the hill I love it. I needed to take a break from all this slander.
I know.
I will. Yeah, I
really think it's better than the other 2 Peter Davison seasons.
Yeah, because 21 has Warriors of the Deep and Twin Dilemma. And
do we count Twin Dilemma? I guess technically we have to, but
we have to. I
guess.
Really
weird. Yeah, it's so weird how it is part of the season, but it is.
I know. Yeah.
And we were talking about double bills from hell. I'd say there are 2 worse. Survivors of the Flux, The Vanquishers.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, Erections in the UK, Saranga Conundrum.
Oh yeah, that's
another good one.
Yeah. Oh, and they're both from the same era. What a surprise!
To be honest, Charlie, I can't really disagree with that. I mean, both of them were horrible, and everyone involved with all of these like double bill from hell stories should be thoroughly ashamed with themselves.
I know. It's like you made Doctor Who, but also you made terrible Doctor Who.
Also, what you were saying, Ryan, about Enlightenment, yeah, it's in my top 10. Not top 5, but top 10. It's fantastic. I didn't realise the twist at the end. Most people sort of expect it because on the cover, it's the ships in space. I somehow didn't pick up on that, and I was completely shocked at the end, like, oh my God, they're in space. And it was such a great twist, and the rest of it, it's just a perfect, like, it's such a good, like, pseudo-historical, almost. But what with the Eternals is just it's just so interesting. I really love it. And I think it's a real shame that Arc of Infinity, and to an extent the King's Demons, it was kind of boring, but it was all right. Like, lots of it comes down to, obviously, the operator of Chameleon passing away. So if King's Demons and Arc of Infinity weren't there, it would be much, much higher for me. But yeah, I still don't think season 20 is that bad. But at the end of the day, my least favorite classic Doctor Who season is season 22. And obviously we've already got that.
Yeah.
No. Why did I say that? 23. We've already got that.
Yeah.
23.
I can understand that. I can understand that. I mean, Trial of a Time Lord, it had some good things, but yeah.
So eventually, everyone's least favorite classic Doctor Who season is going to get adapted. So we might.
And also everybody's favorite season as well, if it hasn't been already. Yeah. So
But season 16 hasn't been yet, so we'll have to wait.
Yeah, I'm hyped. I'm hyped for the Key to Time. It's a great season. Love it. So I'm hoping they do it soon. They're due another Tom Baker, so hopefully. It'd be good. But Bill, what about which camp are you in? Are you in the season 20 is amazing or the season 20 is terrible camp, or somewhere in between?
Sorry, Charlie, but not for me. Also, sorry, Ryan, because the Fifth Doctor is actually one of my favourites.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's definitely understandable. I mean, I can definitely understand why so many love the Five Doctors. I completely understand. Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, he represents kind of. I love the first 4 Doctors. Don't get me wrong. Like Patrick Troughton is now my favourite Doctor of all time, but Peter Davison for me represents like the first real kind of change, apart from William Hartnell to Patrick Troughton, in the sense that he's a younger man and he's less sure of himself as a Doctor, and he's less in control of situations. Like I don't think it's a coincidence how his best stories, Earthshock, Resurrection, Androzani, are all where he completely loses control. And I feel like that makes him a very interesting take on the Doctor. Like, I love the Fourth Doctor, I love the first 4, as I say, but the Fifth Doctor just kind of a breath of fresh air, especially after 3 and 4. Like, they were such big, confident Doctors who, sure, not necessarily everyone always listened to them, but they knew what they were doing. They knew what to do, how to solve the situation, whereas Peter Davison's Doctor doesn't really feel like he does. So that's kind of the thing why I like him so much.
Yeah, I completely get that. I mean, I think I would have loved him more if his entire era was consistently great. I think if it was just consistently great, I think he would have climbed up the list for sure. But for some reason, I think kind of sort of how I feel about Jodie Whittaker, his era is kind of a bit of a mixed bag. For me, I think, and in a way, I kind of put them on the same level for me, Peter and Jodie. But I completely agree with everything you said. And if his era was consistently great, if we had a lot of great stories like Shock, Enlightenment, Case of Androzani, if we had a lot of great stories like that, I think he would have definitely risen up the ranks for me. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, seasons 19, 21, I think are pretty solid for most part, apart from, the obvious ones out and everything. But then you get to season 20, and that is, I feel like, again, for me, the worst of his era, because it is just, I feel like for the 20th anniversary, they could have done something really interesting. And I feel like the idea of bringing an old monster back for each story was fine concept-wise, but when you actually get into who they decide to bring back, they bring back the Black Guardian, which is fine, but then they don't use him very much.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Mara in Snake Dance, which again is fine, like great villain, but was only in the last season. So is it really an old monster, really?
Yeah.
Omega starting the season, I mean, fine. I like the Three Doctors. I like him in the Three Doctors. I don't like him in Arc of Infinity because he doesn't do anything really. He just the only thing he does is in the final episode where he turns into Peter Davison running around and becomes a mutant version of him in Amsterdam. Terminus is just it's Terminus. The King's Demons is just, like you say, Ryan, a nothing story. I know it wasn't supposed to originally like end off the season. They were originally going to end off with it. They end off season 20 with the original version of Resurrection, which was called like The Return, I think it was, but they couldn't because of like they weren't able to for production reasons. It just, apart from introducing Chameleon, it's just nothing. It's a nothing entity. Enlightenment, see, I get where you're coming from. Like concept wise, it is really solid, and I like the fact that it's set in space and it's about ships sailing through space. I like that, and I like it's about a race as well. But I don't know if it, for me, makes the best use of that idea. I think for me, it could be like Warrior's Gate in a way. Like maybe I just haven't quite clicked with it yet in a way, and I need to maybe like rewatch them both at some point, and maybe I'll get where you're all coming from with it.
Yeah, well, I think, funnily enough, I was going to say that they had the same writer, but I don't think it is the same writer. I think it did Terminus instead, which is... But I could definitely see the comparisons between that and Warrior's Gate. And even though I really like Warrior's Gate, for some reason, I think I slightly prefer this a little bit more than Warrior's Gate, which I never thought I would say. But I think I really like the concept of it. And even though Case of Androzani is still like pinnacle Peter Davison for obvious reasons, I mean, it is a classic. I think this is a good, maybe second or maybe third, but I think it just really depends on the day, really, which it's either second or third favourite for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, season 20 is average, but I love the Five Doctors. I can't deny that the Five Doctors, for me, it's the ultimate, like, as we say, like comfort episode of Doctor Who. Like, I could just watch that any day. It's always fun. It's not the best episode of Doctor Who ever. It's absolutely not, but it's just fun. It just makes you happy watching it. I know, I can remember most of the story just now, just thinking about it, you know, Sarah rolling down a bank, a Dalek shooting itself in a little thing, Cybermen trying to play, you know, jump across some silly thing, and a whole discussion about pie. Like, it's all just a bit silly and nonsense, but it's just so fun. It's truly fun Doctor Who that I think is glorious.
I've heard it being described before as like a really unhealthy birthday cake, because at the end of the day, it's not good. It's like I hate this phrase, but objectively speaking, it's not a good episode.
Yeah,
there isn't much there. But at the end of the day, it's just half the time, like half the entire runtime, you just got a smile on your face because it's just so cool to see all of this. You've got cameos from Jamie and Liz and all these people.
Yeah,
it's like the Avengers Infinity War Doctor Who, a classic Doctor Who anyway.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. It's so good. I love it, honestly. Just all the different doctors and companions. And even the clever use of Shada, I loved. I thought it was really creative to do that. I think if Tom Baker came back, it would have been so perfect. But it just wasn't.
I've heard rumours that they were planning on not just bringing him back, but also bringing back Joe Grant as well. And they were going to have her team up with John Pertwee, while Sarah Jane would have teamed up with Tom Baker. And hearing that would have been so perfect, just having them together. And it's just, again, I do enjoy it a lot. I mean, it is one of the first classic Doctor Who DVDs I bought. I do have fond memories of it. I just can't help but feel like it could have been just that little bit better, as like what we could have had, you know what I mean? But but it's still enjoyable. I mean, I still have fun with it, even if it's not like the best, like Three Doctors or especially Day of the Doctor. But it's still a solid story.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got my Doctor Who spreadsheet up here, the nerdiest thing I've ever.
I've got it. I've got one too. Don't you worry. Worry.
I've got Enlightenment is in 9th, and 5 Doctors is in 13. And this is an unpopular opinion, and I didn't mention it before. Terminus is in 27. I actually like Terminus quite.
Is that of all time?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's ahead of a lot of episodes then.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's 301 if you include Shada and include Trial of a Time Lord as one. The official list
27th.
It's 27. Yeah, it's
wow.
I know.
The top 10%. It's better than 90% of Doctor Who.
When you put it like that, it sounds really strange, but yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be so critical. It's great. What makes it so good for you?
It's just a fantastic concept, I think. Just a space station in the center of the universe where it originated, and they're on a leper ship, and they've got to and there's all the stuff with Turlo and the Black Guardian convincing him to kill the Doctor. You've got his moral dilemma. It could have been slightly better executed. The direction doesn't it looks a bit boring. I'll say, it doesn't exactly. It's not the most sellable Doctor Who story. It made sense to release it as a trilogy box set, much like the E-Space trilogy and other stuff. But it's a really good one, I think, and I think season 19. No offense to Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton, I don't think the acting was incredible in that season, but season 20, I think they're really good, and I think especially Sarah Sutton in the story is actually very good performance. So. Yeah, it's better than 90% of Doctor Who. I don't know. I've not watched it in a while, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen it once, so I feel like I don't have a strong enough opinion on it. I didn't particularly enjoy it when I first watched it, but I probably need to go back and watch it again and really, think about it and appreciate it. And then maybe it will, come around to the right way. But I think that's a pretty good note to end on with a shock, unpopular opinion right there. Better than 90% of Doctor Who. I think that's a great stat as well. I really like that. But yeah, so that's about it from this edition of KerVAM. It's been great to talk about the Underwater Menace and season 20. Both Doctor Who releases coming this year, so we're going to at least have 2 great podcasts discussing those when they're released, which is going to be really exciting. And as we get closer and closer to the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, we'll be back discussing all the new episodes when they come around in November, because they keep saying it's November, so I'm pretty sure they're all going to air in November, because they really do keep saying that. So I'm like, we're going to get 3 episodes in November, and we will talk about all of them. We'll talk about Christmas special. We'll talk about Series 14 when it comes out early next year as well. There'll be lots more stuff to come. And I'm really looking forward to it, and I think you guys are all as well. So just the usual stuff. Before we go, remember to follow us on Twitter at KerVAMPod. If you're watching on YouTube, check us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're on one of those, you can also watch it on YouTube as well. The link's in the description on this podcast. But that's just about it from me, from Charlie, from Ryan, from Bill. For now, it is goodbye.